pass now the floor to Afif Safieh, who is the Deputy Commissioner for International Relations from Fatah. He came over from London, and please comment on the two speakers before and also develop your ideas on the situation.
Mr. Chairman, I'll try to respond to a question that was put fleetingly yesterday. Yes, I believe Europe is punching well beneath its weight in the international system. And as a person, sir, for 40 years of political activism and 40 years of diplomatic activity, I've always believed that Europe was still an actor in search for a role, and I've always believed that in the Middle East we have a role in search for an actor. And I believe if we could succeed in merging the actor in search for a role and the role in search for an actor, we will all live less unhappily ever after. I'm known to have joked with the Norwegian colleagues after the Oslo back channel breakthrough, telling them if the Oslo process hasn't yet put Palestine fully on the map, it has put Norway on the map. And I offer you this as an incentive for an enhanced, increasing role. Mr. Chairman, I believe that the last 40 years of diplomacy, what we have witnessed was not the world aligning itself on Palestinian preferences, but we, the Palestinians, and we, the Arabs, aligning ourselves on the international consensus, the two-state solution. And I believe for the last 40 years, we in the Palestinian leadership, we have been unreasonably reasonable. We have abandoned the demand for absolute justice. We are only asking for possible justice. And I believe leading members of your political family, Bruno Kreisky, Willy Brandt, Olaf Palme, François Mitterrand, have played a great role in persuading us to follow that path, which up to now has been very inconclusive. Hence, your responsibility in helping us achieve our legitimate, reasonable goals. Let me tell you, de Gaulle, who is a statesman like they make them no more these days, after the '67 war, had an idea and a proposal of his own. It was called then la concertation à quatre, meaning the coordination of the major four powers. Popular China was not yet in the Security Council, who would meet, agree on what should be the content and the contours of a solution, and signal to the local belligerent parties what the world expects from them. Unfortunately, the de Gaulle proposal of '67 never really took off the ground, and at best, the permanent representatives in New York met a couple of times and then disbanded. Why? Because the Americans, Mr. Chairman, then were not unhappy with the Israeli military victory. It compensated the humiliations of Vietnam. The Soviets, short-sighted like they frequently could be, didn't see that they who preferred the bipolar constellation, why should they give equal status to lesser countries like England and France? The English were unenthusiastic simply because the idea was French to begin with. And ladies and gentlemen, since then, we have a durable process instead of the lasting peace we all aspire for. And today, we neither have a peace nor do we have a process. And my personal belief is that it's high time to move away from seeking again a process. What we need now is pressure. Our distinguished gentleman just mentioned, bring the two into one room. To say what? Hi and bye? Netanyahu has signaled directly during the 11 hours he had with Abu Mazen after the Washington encounters around Obama, and through Molko, his mediator, what are the Israeli expectations. And let me tell you, I believe the Israeli doctrine is not deterrence, it's compellence. What is compellence? Compellence, sir, is the underused concept of Thomas Schelling of Harvard. Deterrence, dissuasion, is a legitimate policy for a state actor. It is how to dissuade a neighbor from undertaking policies that can be detrimental to my interest. What is compellence? This underused concept that I offer to you for usage in the future. Compellence is when an actor tries to compel, coerce a neighbor into undertaking what is best for my interest. What are the Netanyahu proposals in a closed room? Netanyahu will tell us, and has told us, on the west of the West Bank, the frontiers is the wall, that wall of shame, that wall of separation that has already swallowed 12% of our land, and en passant, all the water aquifers. Merci bien. in addition to having dislocated every cities and caged in every possible urban center and dislocated the urban centers from the villages in their hinterland, etc., etc. But on the eastern flank of the West Bank, Netanyahu is asking for the Jordan Valley and the contours of the Dead Sea, 26% of the West Bank, as a frontier. And Jerusalem, of course, is not negotiable. The situation, the status quo is irreversible. How appetizing an offer. And let me tell you, I remember your friend Yossi Berin in the middle of the 90s wrote about a seminar to which he invited leading politicians and leading generals to discuss this issue of the Jordan Valley. And he says that all the generals said that keeping control of the Jordan Valley was of insignificant military advantage because all that it gives Israel in case of a missile attack is 1 second of earlier warning. But all the politicians, like our friend, said, ooh la la, it would be political suicide if we were to go to Israeli public opinion and tell them, yes, we are willing to withdraw from the Jordan Valley. So the general's specialist opinion was overruled, not on the level of expertise and convincing argumentation, but on the electoral wisdom of raising the issue or not. Ladies and gentlemen, I did not come from London. I reside partly in London. I came from Ramallah the night before today. And let me tell you, sir, seen through Palestinian eyes, what is the state of the game today? Seen through Palestinian eyes, the Nakba catastrophe is not a frozen moment that has happened one time in 1948. It's an ongoing process until today. Every day, ladies and gentlemen, we have 3-4 casualties who pass unnoticed in the international media. Every day you have land confiscation, house demolition, etc. Number 2, Mr. Chairman, I believe, sir, that the years of theoretical peacemaking, and I'm the one who introduced the Oslo negotiators, Yair Hirschfeld and Abu Ala in London, and they continued, luckily without me, in Oslo. The years of theoretical peacemaking were not years of Israeli withdrawals. They were years of the expansion of occupation through the elastic, uncontrolled expansion and growth of the illegal settlements. And today, ladies and gentlemen, with great pain, I have to tell you that the constants, the perseverant policy of Israeli successive governments, left, right, and center, is how to acquire as much of Palestinian geography without Palestinian demography. And let me tell you, and His Excellency Amir Moussa mentioned it, today, 10 years after the Arab Peace Plan of 2002, the Beirut Summit, which was not that different of the Fez Plan Summit of 1982 déjà. So we could trace Arab diplomacy of peace back to Fez Summit in Morocco of 1982. The fact that we are in a diplomatic impasse is not the result of Arab refusal to recognize Israeli existence, but the impasse today, face it with courage. The impasse today is due to Israeli refusal of Arab acceptance because they are not ready to meet the territorial prerequisite, which is, if you withdraw from your 67 expansion, we are ready to recognize your pre-67 existence. So the impasse, sir, is due to Israeli refusal of Arab acceptance. Number 4, we have applauded the birth of the quartet, but we have to admit today the quartet is a one-tet operation. And I believe each time America, the only remaining superpower, promises us pressure on the Israelis, it turns that their political weight resembles Luxembourg or Liechtenstein. And with great sadness, I tell you, unfortunately, Obama has lost 4 battles in the confrontation of wills with Mr. Netanyahu, who, by the way, according to Haaretz, lands in Washington telling his entourage, I am stronger than that man in Washington itself, and proves it every time repeatedly. Now, I mentioned the American dimension, and allow me, Mr. Chairman, a few words on this important dimension. I happen to have been posted in Washington when Obama was still a candidate, not seen as a serious contender, and my wife and I, we used to say, this candidate is reawakening reawakening American idealism, and there is a big reservoir of American idealism, this candidate will reconcile America with itself, reconcile America with the world. I have 3 grievances on Obama, who has disappointed us, but yet I want you to know that entering the White House 3 years ago, the first phone call he made on the international level was to Mahmoud Abbas, and we are not the biggest player in the international arena. And the first decision on international relations he took was the appointment of a special envoy, Senator Mitchell, which gives you an indication of how high a priority we were. We have 3 complaints. One, I believe Obama was unaware of the change and switch in the center of gravity within the American Jewish community, which is profound. And I know for a fact that increasing segments of the American Jewish community see Israeli misbehavior as a source of embarrassment for them who grew accustomed to be in the forefront of civil rights and human rights battles. And today, because of Israeli occupation, for 45 years they were expected to continue defending the indefensible. Hence, they are now uncomfortable and embarrassed. And Obama went back to the old horses of Dennis Ross, whom I call Dennis the Menace, when he had many other alternatives to use and work with. The second grievance is that Obama is an authentic multilateralist, unlike Bush, who was a unilateralist, an annoying and exasperating unilateralist. Obama is a multilateralist who did not take really advantage of the partners of the US administration around the world, mainly Europe, and maybe here Europe was insufficiently assertive in its willingness to be more than a payer, but to be a geostrategic player. The third grievance, apparently President Lula has said that Obama has not shown as much courage as the voters who brought him to the White House. Let me conclude, ladies and gentlemen. I personally believe that the de Gaulle model is a very useful model. And I believe that in international relations, in matters of war and peace, the international will should prevail on a national whim. Peace is too important to be left only to the Israelis to decide upon. And they believe that peace with us is a halfway compromise between Labour and Likud, between Bibi and Barak, and between Livni and Lieberman. Ça ne va pas, it's not that way. By the way, when we witnessed the occupation of Kuwait by Saddam Hussein, who floated the idea that we should have a referendum in Iraq on how much territory Iraq should be withdrawing from? There was the international will, which was clear. Sir, I will conclude. I was hoping on your elastic tolerance. Yes. I will conclude by saying, if there is a more assertive role for the international community, a territory that was occupied in 6 days can also be evacuated in 6 days, so that my friend can rest on the 7th, and we can engage in the fascinating journey of nation building and economic recovery. Being of a Christian origin, even in the bleakest of moments, and we are in a bleak moment, I always say, Palestine will inevitably resurrect. And as you know, Mr. President, we have had some previous experience with resurrection. Thank you.